Hello. Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Mary Elder. I'm with 4 Points Family Chiropractic in Northwest Austin. And this month in our office is Pediatric Month. So we're really focusing on kids' health. And I mean, of course, we care about the parents also, but we really focus a lot on kids this month. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about pediatric proprioception. So let me define what proprioception is first, because it's a $10 word for something that we all know exactly what it is. It's basically your sixth sense. So it's where your body is in space. And there's specialized parts of your body that do this for you. They're called mechanoreceptors. So they're particular cells that are in the joints of your body, all of them, every single one, and in your muscle spindles. So essentially, when you move, feedback goes up your spinal column and into your brain to let you know where you are in space. So right away, you can see why a chiropractor cares about this, right? Because it's the brain-body connection, and that's exactly what we care about in everybody, but particularly in developing bodies. We want to make sure that brain-body connection is doing what it should and as quickly as it should. So it's general health is kind of dependent here on good proprioception, because it also, when you have it, it reduces fall risk, it makes sure you know where you are in space, it reduces injury problems. So overall for everyone, it's important. But in kids, it's extra important because they are growing so fast. So their proprioception itself is actually changing very, very quickly. The information they're getting from their body changes all the time. I mean, you've probably seen it happen when they hit a growth spurt and all of a sudden they're like tripping all over their feet and they don't know where they are in space. That's their body redirecting the proprioception and getting used to where it is. It's basically giving them a sense of their self, where they are. So it's answering questions for them that they don't even know that they have. So like, how big is my body? Can I fit into this space? How fast can I really go? How high can I jump? How hard do I push this thing to get it to move, or pull it to get it to move? One of the examples I see a lot is kids will bend down to pick up a toy, and they'll kind of they'll like misjudge how heavy it is. Basically, when they stand back up, they fall on their bottom because they used way too much force to pick up the thing. Well, that's information that stores in their brains. They know the next time they go to pick up the rubber ducky, they don't need to use that much force that they had to pick up the box of Legos. So that's one of the memories that will develop for them, and that gets stored in the body and the subconscious part of the brain, and that's one of the things that they're developing. So when we talk about kids and proprioception, there's certain things that you will notice about your kids' movement patterns, and honestly, I see them in adults also, that let us know that their proprioception maybe isn't what it should be, or we need to just be paying attention to how it's developing to make sure it does that optimally. So one of the things that you'll notice is either hypersensory or hyposensory. So hypersensory basically is a little bit of input goes a long way. These kids get overwhelmed by stimulus. And it's not just physical stimulus, it can be auditory, it can be just general sensory stimulus. They get overwhelmed, so their body kind of shuts down. And it's not super dramatic for some of them, but one of the things that we look for in those kids are they get fatigued easy, right? So you're just out playing, and all of a sudden, the other kids keep going, and the kid with the proprioception issues might come up and be like, I'm tired, I don't want to do this anymore, and they're not sick, right? Like that would be typical for somebody who had a fever, didn't feel very good. But hypersensory kids, there's too much feedback going into their brain from their body. So they get tired. We'll see, these are the kids that kind of trip a lot, or like they're walking and they kind of like veer off to the side and they'll bump into walls. Maybe they have bruises from like being klutzy, which like guilty too, but little kids should really know where they are and be quick on their feet. So when we see kids kind of bumping into things and they're not playing around, we perk up, we pay attention. These are also the kids that are going to have really, really bad posture. And I know that's kind of hard to differentiate right now after 2 years of having school at home. Like posture is something that we're seeing in a lot of people, but these are the kids that when they have the rounded shoulders like this, they'll tell you they can't sit up straight, or they can't hold it for longer than a few seconds because they feel tired. These kids also tend to have poor fine motor skills. So usually by about age 4 or 5, children have picked a dominant hand. They're learning how to write, they're cutting with scissors, they're doing one thing more with one hand. These are kids that you'll see kind of switch back and forth, and they get classified as ambidextrous, which can be good, but they'll almost be kind of clumsy with both hands, and that lets us know that they're hypersensitive also. So these kids, if you recognize this, one of the best things you can do is actually put them on all fours and have them crawl. You want to have them work on cross crawl mechanisms. You can do dead bug exercises. You can get a yoga ball and have them lay on their belly on the ball, so face down, and have both hands on the ground, both knees on the ground, and kind of do cross crawl work. That's a good one for them. You can also do finger to nose, so you just take their 2 fingers and you have them touch their nose, eyes opened and eyes closed. That'll reestablish some of the coordination. For kids like this, we're really making sure that their nervous systems aren't overwhelmed, because when we're as chiropractors, what we're looking for is making sure the brain-body connection is doing what it should. So for kids like this, we're basically looking to calm the nervous system. So that's one of the big things that we check in our office for any of our patients, but particularly for pediatric patients. Now, the opposite of this is the hyposensory kids. When you look at proprioception, this is actually the population that gets spoken about more, because these are the kids that kind of get classified as having focus issues. That's technically true, but what's happening is that their brain isn't getting enough feedback. So it's like their joints are loaded, it's happening, but it's not getting to the brain. So these kids are the ones looking for stimulus. They're seeking it out. And this is going to sound probably familiar to a lot of parents, but these are the ones that are jumping up and down a lot. Like, they can't sit still. They're fidgeters, right? They're jiggling their leg, or they're snapping their fingers, or they can't sit still. They'll get up and run around. We'll also see kids with hyposensory proprioception doing a lot of like jaw clenching, or maybe they chew on their pencils in school. You might get reports like that from the teachers. They chew on straws when they're in restaurants. I see that in adults too a lot, by the way, and it's reflecting the same thing. These are the kids that like to cram themselves into small spaces. Like, if you've ever seen a kid like get in between the couch and the couch cushion and kind of like try to cram themselves in, they want pressure. They're looking for pressure. These are also children that you'll see really like wrestling, whether organized or with like a sibling, and they just want that kind of pressure and big global movements. So these kids tend to do really, really well with weighted blankets. You want to make sure that you get it the appropriate weight, and that depends on the child's weight. They also do great if you put them on a yoga ball at desk while they're trying to study, because these are the ones that like to bounce a little bit. That actually helps them focus, because you're giving them enough proprioceptive input that that part of their brain is satisfied. So then they can focus on other things. Now, as far as what we do here, when we look at kids like this and we're adjusting them, we know the joints are loaded, so we know the information's there. What we do with the adjustment is we feed it to the brain. We basically make sure it's getting there quickly and efficiently, so that their brain can tell them, okay, it's time to calm down, it's time to focus. We're establishing that proprioceptive integrity. So if either of these scenarios sounds familiar to you, or you know a kid like this, what we're doing in our office, if you call in and you mention this Facebook Live, the entire intake with any necessary consultation with the doctor, any orthopedic neurological tests, necessary x-rays, all of that exam, it's normally $349. If you mention this Facebook Live, it's going to be $67 to come in and get checked, and we'll include one of these pillows. It helps establish the cervical curve in the neck and make sure that their neck is supported at nighttime while they sleep. That is another feedback mechanism for proprioception. So if you just mention proprioception in this Facebook Live, you'll be able to take advantage of that. Now, when we want to nurture the proprioceptive development in children, most of that happens at home. Like, this is how we can affect it, but most of it happens starting from childhood. So it's at all ages, right? But you want to start as young as possible. It goes beyond the brain-body connection. It also, your proprioception impacts your cognitive ability long-term and your immune system function. And let me kind of explain why that's happening. 98% of our sensory input is subconscious. We don't think about it. We don't really know that it's coming into our body. We just react to it. Our body knows what to do with it. So if your proprioception is challenged, if they're having trouble with it, kids don't trust where they are in space. And you might see this after a kid has like a big fall. They don't really trust to try and do the thing again. Like monkey bars is a good example. Once they fall, they're like, I don't know about this. No, thank you. Maybe later. Some will go right back to it because they trust their bodies. So what's essentially happening, if your body doesn't know where you are in space and you fall and you hurt yourself or you run into a wall, it's scary when you're a kid. You don't like it, so you don't really want to do it again. But that causes kind of a low-level anxiety because you're not sure where you are in space and you don't trust what's happening. It's very low level. It's really, really subtle. And what it essentially does is shift children into a sympathetic state. Now, if you've spent, at this point, any time in our office, you know how strongly we feel about where people should be. It's the parasympathetic space. This is what science tells us. Humans should run in a parasympathetic space. We are calmer there, our neurology is working best, our hormones, our growth factor, all of that's doing what it should in the parasympathetics. When we're in a sympathetic state, we're running just too high, too hot, too fast. It's fight or flight. And that's not where children need to be. They don't need to be there at all. Neither do adults, but we can kind of regulate it a little bit better. When kids are in fight or flight, they tend to stay there, right? Some kids have trouble going to sleep at night or they have nightmares, and it's because they're so amped up, they have trouble getting themselves back down. So that's one of our big goals here with our pediatric patients is shifting kids back into the parasympathetic state. But when you are at kind of a low-level sympathetic state for long periods of time, it starts to impact your immune function and your cognitive function because you're always on high alert. So you can see how the trickle-down effect is there. When you're developing proprioception, again, it depends on the time of life for the kid, but if you have a baby at home or you know somebody that does, tummy time is so important. It's so important. The best way to do that, by the way, is adult on their tummy facing baby on their tummy, and I'll explain why in a second. But tummy time is going to be great. It starts to establish the cross crawl mechanism. Kids need to be rolling, they need to be rocking, crawling, and eventually pulling themselves up into standing position and walking. Some kids will do the butt scooch, where they kind of scooch themselves on the butt and then pull themselves up to the standing position. So these kids you're just going to want to put back into the all four, or you can lay them on their back and you can take their leg and their arm, cross crawl, and do the cross crawl for them. It's building the same neurological patterns that helps them. Some kids, you'll notice they kind of do like the army crawl where they move their arms, but their legs are still flat on the ground. That typically indicates a weak core. So you can kind of pick them up and put them belly down on the ball also. Obviously you're supporting them because they're babies and they can't hold themselves, but being in that position helps establish their core also. Now, if you have an older kid, doesn't mean that you can't do tummy time. You can be down on all fours with them, and they can be, drawing, even watching things, which we don't really recommend a lot of screen time, but if they're going to be doing it, tummy time's good for them too. So we're crawling exercises, things like jumping jacks are good, anything that's getting both sides of the body to move at the same time. So when we develop the proprioception and we reestablish it in kids, their health overall, their brain develops better, their focus gets better, their test scores get better, teachers are happier. It's just easier to keep them focused for long periods of time. So what other strategies can you use? Part of it's dietary. You want to make sure your kid's getting enough protein. Protein is the supply of amino acids. Amino acids are essential when your kids are developing muscle tone, the proprioceptive mechanoreceptors, when their neurology is growing. And you've probably seen it when kids get all of a sudden really, really hungry and you're like, oh, that's about to be a growth spurt. Make sure that they're getting consistent protein and enough. And that's dependent on what is enough is dependent on age of the child and the size of the child. But you want to make sure that they have enough that they have access to so that their body can use it appropriately. The standard American diet gets us into some trouble here. It's called SAD for a reason. When kids are developing and this part of their brain is growing, high inflammatory is not a good idea. It isn't generally, but you want to make sure you're watching sugar. Try to keep sugar at a minimum. I know that's hard. Kids are like fiends for sugar, so are a lot of us, but keeping it on the limit is going to be important for them. You want to make sure they're getting plenty of sleep. That's a basic. You want to make sure they're getting plenty of water. Those are basics too. We're going into summer here in Texas, so the water is going to be even more important. You want to make sure they have a healthy microbiome. Their microbiome is going to be giving a lot of feedback to the brain. It actually helps your proprioception develop. There is an entire other webinar that we did on Facebook. You can find it there on our YouTube channel if you want more information about how to build a healthy microbiome for you and your child. You also want to be focusing really, really closely on oral motor control. That is a huge component of developing good proprioception. So remember earlier when I told you the best position is mom or dad, an adult, laying on their belly, facing the child on their belly? That is so that they can watch your mouth. When babies are developing from birth to about a year or two, when they start making those babble sounds, they're going to be and forming their own words. They're watching your mouth to get an idea of how to form those words. Now, out in public these past couple years, there's been masks covering a lot of us, so mom and dad and sibling oral motor control has been even more important for developing kids. They need to be able to see how your mouth moves. It's a great precursor to making sure their proprioception does what it's supposed to. In older kids, if that part of their life has already passed, a good way to get that going is to chew. That's why kids tend to go for like straws and pencils to chew on them. That's essentially what they're doing for themselves. You could get like rubber toys that are made for that. You can also get them singing. If they're into singing, that's a lot of fine motor control in the mouth, making sure they get the words appropriately. You can also use a straw. So I recommend a thick smoothie with a straw. That sucking motion does the same thing. It helps develop that oral motor control. And that's helpful for older kids and even into teens. So that's all strategies that you can use to make sure that at home, their proprioception is developing. The final thing, of course, is a healthy spine. I mean, we've talked about this. Those signals have to get from the body to the brain. Any sort of interruption there can slow down proprioception development and kind of affect how they're responding to their environment. So again, if this is something that if you recognize any of this in your child or another, you just want to get checked out and screened to make sure their nervous system's healthy. If you mention this webinar, an intake in our office, an exam, any necessary neurological orthopedic tests, full consult with a doctor, any necessary x-rays and a nerve study, it's typically $349. But if you mention this webinar, you can get all of that for $67. And we include the cervical pillow to support the curve in the neck and make sure that while sleeping, those proprioceptive inputs are doing what they should as well. So if you have any questions about any of this, just drop them in the comments and we'll be answering them. But thank you for joining us on this Facebook Live talking about pediatric health, and let us know if you have any more questions. Thank you.